Hello there, Dragonfire here, and I am doing a franchise ranking. Buckle in because I'm ranking the Halloween franchise. Okay, kicking things off with my number 10, or sorry, my number 13. There are 13 movies in this franchise. I am going with Halloween Resurrection. That's right, Halloween Resurrection. It is my least favorite movie in this franchise. I think it's a lot of people's least favorite. Um, So some of the things I think that are really egregious about this entry in the franchise is probably the most egregious thing that's ever happened in any Halloween movie ever, which is where the scene where Busta Rhymes punks out Michael Myers. Now, um, I don't have as much of a problem with the second time that Busta Rhymes' character Freddy and Michael Myers face off because the second time there's actually physical confrontation, and usually in all these horror movies, the monster ends up getting his comeuppance in the end, right? So I don't have a problem with Freddy fighting back against Michael Myers so much and all that stuff. It is ridiculous or as stupid as it might be. I don't have as much of a problem with it as I do with uh, what happens earlier in the movie, or when there's the confrontation between Michael and Freddy and Buster Rhymes, whatever you want to call him, where he just punks out, he just talks to him really sternly, and Michael turns around and leaves. Now, I did talk to a friend of mine who likes this movie more than I did, and he tried to explain it. He said, "Well, um, it's because he tells them where the location of another victim is, so Michael goes and kills that other victim." But I don't like that because it just makes Michael look stupid. Michael's not supposed to be Jason Voorhees. He's not supposed to be that stupid. Michael could have killed Freddy and then gone to look for the other person. And Michael's never in any of the other movies. Um, he's never shown as being so stupid as to just walk away or whatever. He's not Jason Voorhees. He's supposed to be Michael Myers, not Jason Voorhees, and that's one of the differences between those two characters. So I really prefer that he had not done that. I prefer that there would have been some sort of either have some sort of fight between um, Busta Rhymes' character and Michael Myers right there, or just don't do that scene at all and save the showdown between the two of them for later on in the movie. But don't have Busta Rhymes just curse out Michael Myers and Michael Myers basically become a little bitch and then run away, uh, or or walk away, whatever. That does not work. That should not have been in the movie. That's probably the most egregious thing that happens in this movie, but it also has a lot of other things. I mean, you can see Jamie Lee Curtis right here on the cover. Of course, she's only at the very beginning of the movie because this movie undoes the ending of H2O, something that almost every movie in the franchise, to at least to some extent, undoes the ending of the previous movie before it. But this is a particularly grievous example. I do kind of sort of like that, at least in all the different Halloween timelines and all the different versions of Halloween that we get. I guess we get at least one version of Michael Myers that actually is able to kill Laurie Strode. That he does get to kill Laurie one time. That Michael gets to kill Laurie one time, but in all 13 movies, I guess he deserves to get to kill Laurie one time. But I don't like the execution of it, and I don't like the way that it undoes the ending of H2O, which is one of my favorites. Spoiler, I guess there. Um, uh, I don't like the idea of, oh, she chopped off the wrong guy's head and all that. That just I hate what this movie does to the previous movie. I hate the relationship between the final girl and this guy who's watching her videos over the internet. Um, Even at the end of the movie, after everything that happens, the two characters never actually meet in person. They don't talk on the phone. In fact, you don't even see a final text message after everything's been solved and now they're safe from Michael Myers and everything. You don't even get a final text message or something between um, the main character, the main guy who is watching from the webcam, and the girl who is inside the house. They're trying to build up a potential romance and a love story, but you never even get a final scene between the two of them. He does come into play when he sends her messages while she's inside the house, telling her where to go or where not to go, and watch out for Michael Myers and this and that. So it does play into the plot of the movie, but you never get a resolution for it. I do like the idea that when Michael finally succeeds in killing Laurie, that he um, uh, travels back and goes back to his house after that. He just wants to go home, and then he finds a bunch of people living in his house. I'm not sure why it took him so long to get back to his house. Well, I guess it was all those years of him hunting down Michael and finally catching up with her in the insane asylum. Is it supposed to be the same year? Like he kills her like he kills Jamie shortly before Halloween, and then that same year he makes it back to his house right on time for Halloween to kill more people at his house. I don't know, but there's just a lot of very poorly executed stuff in this. Um, and yeah, just a lot of things I did not like about this movie, and uh, it comes in last place for me. Okay, my number 12 is going to be Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Um, yeah, I do not like this movie. 89 seems to have been a tough year for big major horror franchises. You know, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan came out in 89, which many consider to be the weakest of the original 8, if not the weakest of the entire series, or near the bottom of the entire series for the Friday the 13th franchise. Also in 89, you had Dream Child, which again, a lot of people consider to be one of the weakest entries in the franchise, definitely the weakest entry of the 80s in most people's opinion, for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. So Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees had bad years, and I would say Michael had a bad year too. The way that they kill off um, uh, the final girl from the last movie, who was Jamie's foster sister, um, when they kill her off at the beginning of part 5, only to replace her with this character Tina, who nobody cares about, is one of the big mistakes of this movie. Also, the fact that they don't follow up with the idea that Jamie actually killed her foster mother. Instead, Jamie just injured the mother. Um, and so they put Jamie into a mental institution, and now she's mute. Um, yeah, just so many mistakes done in this, and probably the most egregious thing that this movie does is those sound effects. Those sound effects of those police officers. They added in cartoony, like clown sound effects for a couple of characters in the movie that were a couple of guys who were playing cartoon characters. So, um, lots of mistakes made in Halloween 5. Okay, um, that was my 12, my 13 and my 12. Okay, coming up with my number 11. My number 11, you can see this is a double box set for Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2, but I'm only picking one of these movies as my number 11. The other one is actually ranked a lot higher. Um, so my number 11 um, is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, I've heard some people try to defend this movie in saying that because the first Rob Zombie's Halloween had to remake the original, that Rob Zombie's hands were tied, and that with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, they like it better because he was more free to do whatever he wants to do. And while I can respect that reasoning, it doesn't save the movie for me. First of all, the first really part of the movie, it they essentially do a remake of the original Halloween 2. So when they talk about it being original Rob Zombie doing whatever he wants, the first part of the movie is essentially a remake of the original Halloween 2 because they pick her up, they take her to the hospital, and then Michael attacks the hospital. And she tries to survive. Now, that, of course, turns out to be a dream sequence, but it's still part of the movie that you are watching. So it is essentially a remake of the original Halloween 2. It's Michael stalking Laurie in the hospital, trying to get to Laurie in the hospital, killing people who get in his way. Ultimately, he's trying to get to Laurie. Now, again, that turns out to be a dream. Um, and then another thing I have to mention here before I forget it is um, a lot of people have really praised the acting of Brad Dourif, and I love Brad Dourif. If you don't know, he's the voice of Chucky from the Child's Play series, one of my favorite series. I haven't covered that series on this channel yet, but I plan to. Um, and Brad Dourif is in Zombie's Halloween's 1 and 2. Um, and one thing that people always like about this is the acting of Brad Dourif when he finds his daughter Annie dead towards the end of the movie. I agree. He does a fantastic job grieving his daughter, and it's one of the hardest hitting scenes in all of the Halloween franchise, and some tremendous acting from Brad Dourif. There is one thing, however, that kind of detracts from that scene for me, and what detracts from it for me personally is the fact that um, uh, at the beginning of the film, when it's the first, it picks up where the previous movie left off. Brad Dourif goes, he finds Laurie wandering around. He picks her up and drives her to the hospital, and then she's in the hospital bed, and it's really unclear when the dream sequence begins. But they also show the escape of Michael Myers at that time, which I'll talk about more in a minute. But they show how Michael Myers escapes, and Laurie wakes up in the hospital, dream sequence, all that. Okay, so what the thing that detracts from Annie's death and the great acting that Brad Dourif does in that scene is the fact that he's just simply driving around after his daughter has been taken to the hospital, and like he so plays that death when it finally does happen in part two. But at the end of part one, he knows that his daughter needs to be taken to the hospital, but he's just simply driving around, and he picks up Laurie and drives her to the hospital. Um, of course, the the reason why they did that scene is because they wanted Brad Dourif to be in that scene, right? That's the way. That's the reason why they have him to be the one to find Annie, right? Or sorry, to find Laurie, because they wanted more scenes with Brad Dourif, I'm sure. But it just doesn't make sense that when his daughter is in the hospital, so seriously injured like she was, um, um, that they reverse that around and make it so that uh, he's just driving in the car like he couldn't care less that his daughter was in the hospital. Maybe his concern for Laurie, and I don't know. You could try to justify it, but it does seem to make it a little less impactful, in my opinion. Um, so, okay. Um, I want to get on to some of the things some more of the things I dislike about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But first, well, of course, I'm going to acknowledge that there is a director's cut and there is a theatrical cut. Theatrical, of course, was the one shown in the movie theaters, and director's cut is the version that most people have if they ever got out on home video. Now, I have a Peacock streaming service, and I watched both Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 theatrical versions on Peacock, and I watched the director's cut versions on this home video here. Unfortunately, this version doesn't have a ton of extra features, but it does have the director's cut versions. Um, I would say for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that I like the theatrical version better than I like the director's cut version. For one thing, the theatrical cut is shorter than the director's cut, I'm pretty sure, which brevity in this movie is good, is a good thing. Um, I like the fact that it only takes place 1 year later, not 2 years later, when the second attack happens at the beginning of the movie. They show how Michael Myers escapes the ambulance that's supposed to be driving him to the morgue because they think he's dead. Um, and he probably is dead. I really believe that Michael Myers is a supernatural creature. In Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, you could make the case for all the movies that he's in that he's supernatural, to be honest. Not a single one of them would a normal human being be able to do what Michael Myers does in these movies. But definitely in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, he has to be supernatural. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like the movie, because I don't like the fact that at the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween 1, Laurie Strode shot Michael point blank range in the face. And like, boom. It's off screen, but it's so done so well that you can imagine what it looks like in your head. You can imagine his head exploding, some of his blood splatting up on her face when she shot him right in the face at point blank range, and everything. I love the ending to Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. I really, really love the ending. But you can't have somebody come back from that, especially when after that they get no medical attention. They're just uh, the ambulance that they're driving crashes, and he gets no medical attention. He just gets up and walk walks away. Now I think in some of the commentary and stuff because the whole story is that they didn't find his body. Um, and so people just say he's missing and assumed dead, and maybe, like coyotes or something ate his body, and that's why they never found the body, or somebody came along and stole the body once they found the crash site or something. I guess there might be different theories or different ways you could explain why the body was missing. It, in between Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But one thing that I really like about the theatrical cut is that he doesn't take a year off. In the director's cut, he's supposed to come back and the attack happens 2 years later, which might explain why if they had one Halloween without incident, um, the second by the time the second Halloween rolls around, because it was 1 year after the attack, they have a Halloween without incident. The next year it goes around, they might let their guard down a little bit, and they say, well, Michael Myers didn't attack us last year, so why should we believe that he'll attack us this year? So that part of it makes sense, in the sense that if you want to say they let their guard down. But I just think when Michael Myers is free and he's out roaming, he doesn't take a year off. So if his ultimate goal is to go after Laurie, he's gonna go after her next Halloween. He's not gonna skip a Halloween and then go after the Halloween after that. Um, I guess the reason why the change was made from 1 year to 2 years is because The movie itself actually did come out 2 years later. The first one came out in 2007. Second one came out in 2009. So I guess that change was made in the director's cut, or or maybe that's the way Rob Zombie wanted it originally. But anyway, that's part of the director's cut version of the movie, and so it keeps it with real time, 2007 to 2009. But then, like I said, then you have the problem with Michael Myers taking a year off. What did he do that one Halloween when he wasn't chasing Laurie and trying to kill her? You know, because Michael Myers obviously feels compelled to kill people on Halloween or around Halloween. He starts killing usually most of the time shortly before Halloween, and then he really goes on a rampage on the Halloween night. That's consistent for all the movies. So why, if Michael Myers is not locked up, he's not in prison, he's not in an insane asylum or anything like that, why would he take a year off and not do any killing? Um, Also, another thing I don't like about the director's cut version is the amount of times you see Michael without his mask on. It's far less in the theatrical version, which makes me prefer the theatrical version. Um, Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 is the first time we ever saw Michael actually talk on camera, I believe. I believe it's the first and only time Michael ever talks on camera, unless there might be a scene in the television cut of the original Halloween 2 where there's a flashback to little boy Michael Myers, and he might talk in that version of Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2. I don't know if there is or not. I'd have to double check because I know that with the original Halloween 2, there is a theatrical cut and a television cut, one that they cut down to play on television. They added a few extra scenes for the television cut. They did the same thing with the original Halloween from 1978. The television cut of that movie also had additional scenes that weren't in the theatrical version. In fact, the additional scenes for both versions were shot at the same time. For Halloween 1 and 2 were shot when they were filming Halloween 2. Towards the end of filming of Halloween 2, they shot alternate scenes for the television cuts for both movies so that they could be released on network television. Uh, but yeah, they had to cut out some of the violence, gore, nudity, stuff like that in order to get versions that would be playable on network television with commercials in between and everything. Um, but anyway, I don't, I'm not even 100% sure that even in the television cuts of Halloween 1 and 2 that Michael talks. I think Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, which I do think is a very good film, and it's a remake that's going for something different than what the original was going for, and that's why they have little kid Michael talk in Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. Something that made people furious, though, is in the director's cut. I believe it's in the director's cut um, of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Adult Michael Myers talks, and that was the first time that adult Michael Myers had ever spoken, and a lot of people did not like that, and I agree with that. I don't like adult Michael Myers speaking either. Um, One of the things I hate about is it undoing the ending of Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. Again, when you shoot somebody point blank range in the face, they should be dead, and that should be it. That's why Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 should have been a standalone movie. And another thing that I really hate about it is the whole White Horse thing. There's no reason for it. It makes no sense. It just it does nothing for the movie and it drags it down. Why is it there? Yeah, so there's a number of things I don't like about it. But again, I will say that I like the theatrical version better than um the director's cut version. So that's Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Oh, one thing else I will say, I can't even remember now. Is it in both versions, or is it just one version or the other version? I think I think in both versions, Dr. Loomis does die. Um, in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, especially in the, I want to say it's the director's cut version, he kills Loomis quite definitively, less definitively in the theatrical version, but I think he kills him in both versions. So again, just like I said about Resurrection, at least there's one timeline where Michael gets to kill Laurie. Well, at least there's, out of 13 movies, but at least out of 13 movies, there's one version, one movie where Michael gets to kill Dr. Loomis. So at least, he should get to kill him at least once. Okay, um, so that was my number 10. And my number, or that was my number 11, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now we're on to my number 10, which is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now this one again is on a double set here, just like I had Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 in a double set. This one is a double set um, for H2O and Curse, but Curse is my number 10. So Curse, um, I will say that I have never watched the producer's cut. So, uh, yeah, I'm just being honest. I've never actually seen the producer's cut. I know there are two cuts of the movie, the theatrical cut and the producer's cut. So I'm basing this ranking off of um the producer's cut, or sorry, the theatrical cut. I have not seen the producer's cut. Now, if I saw the producer's cut and if there was enough of a difference, I might even separate it in my ranking and have 14 movies instead of 13. Um, but so far, I've talked about different versions of these different movies. None of them change it enough to change where I rank them. But then again, like I said, I do know the producer's cut is drastically different. I've had some spoilers online about what some of the differences are, but I've just never watched the movie from beginning to end to really get a feel for it. So I'm just judging Curse of Michael Myers by the theatrical cut. And this movie is convoluted and doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it's just kind of all over the place. And I guess it's fun enough, but um, I just want I just want my Halloween movie to make more sense. I don't like the fact that they replace they bring back the Jamie Lloyd character, but they have her played by a different actor uh, than the actress who played her in parts 4 and 5, which was of course Danielle Harris. They bring back the character but played by a different actress. Um, I don't like that about the movie. I don't like the fact that they kill her off and then introduce us to brand new characters who we don't care about. So yeah, Halloween 6 makes a lot of the mistakes that are made by other entries in the franchise, but I guess still good enough to be on my top 10. All right, that was my number 10. Okay, all right, my number 9. My number 9 is going to be from the newest trilogy here. I'm picking Halloween Kills. Um, and on the DVD here release, I have the extended cut. So I actually watched this movie when it first came out. I watched it on Peacock right after it first came out. And um, let's see there, Halloween Kills. Um, but yeah, I watched the extended cut by myself, and then later on, my brother wanted to watch it with me, and we watched the extended cut again. The extended cut of this movie is way too long. In fact, if I were grading it on the extended cut, it might even rank lower than Curse of Michael Myers. Um, so I definitely like the theatrical cut better if you can just watch the original theatrical cut without the extended cut version, which I did on Peacock. I watched the theatrical cut this year for my lead up to Halloween instead of rewatching the extended cut that I have on DVD now. But originally, both versions were available on Peacock years ago when the movie first came out. And so I watched the extended cut twice, and man, was that movie just too long. But most of all, I think the reason I have it ranked here is because it just feels really unnecessary. Like, I just don't uh, feel like, I don't know, there's just a lot of things about this movie that I don't like, and I necessarily can't even describe them. The way it continues on the same night, and I know that the original Halloween 2 did that. Obviously, I haven't gotten to that movie in my ranking yet, but this version of, I guess you would say, Halloween 3, this is the third movie in this particular timeline. With, of course, the original being the first and 2018 being the second. This Halloween Kills is the third movie in this timeline. Um, it makes it feel like this night just never ends. The things that happened in the first Halloween on, or in Halloween 2018 on Halloween night feel like they should have taken up the entire night. And I would have been much better like with Michael Myers disappearing, or maybe just have the scene where he kills the firefighters and then he disappears after that, something like that, and have him show up again the next Halloween, Halloween 2019, right? Something like that. It just, man, it just, yeah, there's something about this movie. Laurie in a hospital bed, people shouting "Evil dies tonight," the mob being responsible for accidentally causing, is somewhat accidentally causing a mental patient who's obviously not Michael Myers to commit suicide. Um, the mob mentality, the people didn't realize it wasn't Michael Myers. Um, it just, it feels like I get what they were going for, I guess, to an extent, but it just feels poorly executed. Um, I, um, yeah, I just don't enjoy this movie that much. Especially the extended cut. There are really long scenes in the extended cut of some of Michael's victims. You get to see everything that leads up to Michael breaking into their houses and killing them in the extended cut. Too much time. We spend way too much time with a lot of these characters before Michael kills them. The scene in the extended cut version, the scene with Big John and Little John living in the old Myers house, goes on forever and ever in that version. It's much better in the theatrical version of Halloween Kills, where you don't have to sit for all that extra time. But overall, this movie just feels unnecessary. Like, somehow, if this trilogy could have taken all the best parts and like shrunk them down into two movies or even one movie, it would have been better. Um, I guess I'm okay with him killing Karen, Laurie's daughter, um, because there needed to be consequences for this movie, I guess you could say. But I think that the next movie totally squanders that opportunity to have the next movie after this one, Halloween Ends. They had an opportunity to do something, but they squandered it. Um, okay. Okay. Well, yeah. The next one, perfect segue, because my next pick, if you're keeping track, I believe we're on number 7. Uh, no. 8. We're on number 8. Um, and my next pick is Halloween Ends. Which really Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, I don't know. These two could almost be interchangeable for me. I definitely had a worse impression, a worse initial impression of Halloween Kills. That may have been partially due to the fact that I watched the extended cut, but I the theatrical cut didn't fix the problems for me, other than making the movie shorter, which I greatly appreciated. But I just thought that there was a lot of stuff, weird stuff going on. And it's just Kills is just not what I wanted from my movie, um, but a movie that left me baffled. I mean, absolutely baffled. And gee, I think I might, maybe I should change places between Kills and Ends. I don't really know. Yeah, Ends. The first time I saw it, I didn't know what to think of it. I was such in limbo with Halloween Ends. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Um, the more I think about it, the more I see the flaws in it. Thinking about it now, but at the beginning, it was so far off the rails and so not what I was expecting that it actually felt at least somewhat refreshing. That's why I want to put it near the bottom of the list. But it also, yeah, it's just so weird the way to end a trilogy that was set up like this. I mean, they definitely seemed like they were making Michael Myers supernatural in Halloween Kills. And then in Halloween Ends, you find out he's been living for 4 years in a sewer because he was so beaten up, he was so hurt that he was just broken and hiding. And he went 4 years without making an attack on Halloween, so they had 4 years of peace on Halloween night. Um, and what happened to the supernatural creature of Halloween Kills? Like, why? What? What such a fluctuation? And then, you think about this, and a few of Laurie's friends in 1978, a few of Laurie's friends died. Michael killed them. Michael killed several people. And she holds on to that and she lets it basically ruin her life, according to 2018. She let it ruin her life basically for 40 years. For 40 years, she's been suffering with this PTSD. Yet, 4 years after her daughter dies, her own daughter, she just has completely accepted it and she's moving on. Also, Michael is really easy to kill in this movie. Um, they just set him up as a regular human being, which is why you have to have the whole uh, Corey subplot thing to go on, because otherwise this movie would be like 30 minutes long if Corey wasn't in it, right? Um, I just I don't get it. Like I don't get what they were going for. And at first, when I saw it, I was just in so much shock of how different it was that I didn't really know what to do with it. But the more I think about it, the more I dislike it. Um, yeah, there's just a lot of stuff to really dislike about this movie. So, in the future, this could end up going even lower on the ranking because it's supposed to be the final showdown nearly 45 years in the making. 44 years, I guess this came out on the 44th anniversary of the original. But after like over 40 years, when they're advertising the big showdown, the end, and the final showdown between Michael and Laurie and the end of the Halloween saga, um, you need something better than what we got with Halloween Ends. Yeah. I think the more I talk about it, the more Halloween Ends probably moves down in my rankings. So, anyway, right now, as I officially wrote it down, that was uh, my number 8. So it was 13 was Halloween Resurrection, 12 was Halloween 5, The Return of or The Revenge of Michael Myers. Um, then number 11 was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Number 10 was Halloween, uh, The Curse of Michael Myers, or Part 6, basically. The sixth movie in the franchise. Then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills at number 9. Halloween Ends at number 8. All right, let's go to my number 7 pick. And this is one of the few ones that I don't actually have a physical copy of. And that's going to be uh, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I did rewatch this movie again um, in the lead up. I've seen this movie several times, but in the lead up to this ranking and for the month of October, I watched this movie again. And um, the first time I ever saw this movie, I absolutely hated it. I was really confused, and I was like, "Where is Michael Myers? Where is he?" And I thought that maybe I even had the wrong Halloween 3. I thought, are there like two different film series both called Halloween? And this is like the part 3 of that film series. And this can't be the third Halloween movie in the Michael Myers Halloween, right? It can't be. Um, it wasn't until later that I found out the story behind Season of the Witch, and I get what they were going for. Actually, the idea to make the series an anthology was actually pitched for Halloween 2. But the producer, Mustafa Akkad, convinced them to go ahead and do another Michael Myers story for Halloween 2. And he said, if you do another Michael Myers story for Halloween 2, I'll let you make an anthology entry in the franchise for Halloween 3. That was the deal. That's why Halloween 2 came out in 81 and Halloween 3 in 82. Um, yeah, the first time I saw it, I hated it because I was just like, what? And when I found out it was the official sequel, I was like, this is ridiculous. Why would it be, the official sequel? And then some people try to tie it into the original franchise, but when you watch the movie and they're watching Halloween 1, which I guess should have been a tip off to me that they were the same franchise, it's just that they were so different that I was like, how can it be the same franchise, right? But when you watch and you see they're watching Halloween 1 on TV, um, that tells you that in the universe that they occupy, that Michael Myers is a fictional character. Now, some people have tried to cover for this and say, no, it's the true story of Michael Myers, and Michael Myers just became so famous that they made a movie about him. The problem with that theory is that no matter, even if it were true that there were a true story of Michael Myers and then they made a movie about it, um, it wouldn't be the exact same movie. So when you're watching the TV and you're seeing the exact same movie and you can see Jamie Lee Curtis playing Laurie Strode running down the stairs in what's clearly a theatrical movie, I mean, obviously, even if the story of Michael Myers were true, nobody would be there with a camcorder recording Michael Myers killing his victims, right? So you're watching the first movie in the third movie. That tells you that the first movie, for the people who live in that movie, that they watched the same movie that you did. So that has to be that they're watching a movie just like you would watch the movie. So it's not real. It's not real for the people in that movie. For the characters in that movie. So you could try to say it was based on a true story, but I think that's all nonsense. I think it's clearly fictional. Clearly, in this universe, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis are all fictional characters, and none of that actually happened. And if it did, the movie you're watching on TV is a completely different version of what really happened, right? Based on a true story, but not actually true. So even if they're not fictional characters, it has nothing to do. There's no connection between the Michael Myers movies in Halloween 3, which I really wish they wouldn't have done. Maybe they could have left it open to say, that Halloween 3 does happen in the same universe as Michael Myers. It's just a story that's different, that's not about Michael Myers happening in the same universe. But they didn't do that. This Halloween 3 happens in a completely separate universe where the whole Michael Myers thing never happened, as far as I can tell. So, um, Again, I think the whole movie based on a true story thing is garbage. But um, the yeah, there's no connection. But if you isolate it and watch it as its own thing, is it better than some of the Michael Myers movies in this franchise? And the answer is yes. It is better once you get over the fact that there's no Michael Myers in the movie. It's better. Um, However, I've seen some people rank this really, really high on their list. I've heard of people ranking it as high as number one or number two, and I don't think it deserves that. At least not for me. It's not as much my style of movie as the Michael Myers stories, which all the other movies tell are. But I will say that over time, this movie has definitely gone up my list. It probably at one time would have been dead last on my list, but it's gone up. Um, because of first just the shock of realizing that this is a sequel that's not a real sequel. It has nothing to do with any of the other movies. Anyway, okay. For my number six, I am going now. People are gonna be mad. I'm going with the original Halloween from 1978. Yes, I know. This is crazy, right? The original Halloween from 1978 doesn't even crack my top five. Well, I gotta tell you, if this movie were just if these were just based on how good a movie was technically made, the original Halloween from 1978 would probably be my number one. It might be one of the number one movies technically made of all time. But this list is about how much I enjoy a movie. And while I appreciate the original Halloween from 1978, I will tell you that this movie gets kind of boring for me, in all honesty. It just moves along too slow, at way too much of a snail's pace. Um, and yeah, it's just too there's just a little bit too much for of this of just the time in between. And I want to get to the stuff that I like about horror movies. I like seeing the kills. I like seeing how creative they can be. Um, I'm just gonna be honest. Horror movies don't scare me. It's extremely rare for any movie to ever scare me. None of the Halloween movies actually do scare me. None of them. So I want to get to the action. I want to get to the gore and the nudity and stuff like that. So if people are probably going to be mad that, I don't appreciate it for the classic it is and the way it builds the tension and the suspense and the jump scares. Whatever. I'm sure it executes all that um, flawlessly. It, it does. But it's just not the movie that I enjoy the most in this franchise. Okay, that was my number six. All right. Okay, I probably just lost half my audience there, but it's just the way that I feel. Um, my number five. Now that we're in the top five, I am going with which one did I here? Oh, Halloween 2 from 1981. The original. The original Halloween 2. Um, this movie um I enjoy. I like the brutality of the kills. I like the gore. I like that it ups the nudity and the creativeness which Michael kills and stuff. Um, I really like Halloween 2 from 1981. That's why it's in my top five. I enjoy the sequel. I enjoyed the ending. Of course, it gets undone with Halloween 4. but I still really like Halloween 4 as well. Um, I'll talk more about that maybe when I get to it, but with I like the idea that Dr. Loomis has to sacrifice himself in order to save uh, Lori and in order to save just everyone from Michael in general. He has to blow up himself by blowing up you know, blowing up um, Michael Myers and blowing up Dr. Loomis. Like that um, the whole sacrifice yourself for the greater good. I like the ending in that way, and I just like how Michael Myers kills people and just goes on it. I think the idea of having it on the same night as the original Halloween is inventive, and unlike with later entries like Halloween Kills, in this one it actually works, in my opinion. Like it works that it could still be the same night. When they're willing when they wheel Jamie out at the end of the night, you can see that the sun has come up. So it's actually, by that point, it's actually November 1st. And you can say that probably at some point in the movie they passed midnight and it was November 1st. That's one thing about Halloween Kills is even when he kills Laurie's daughter, Karen, I think is her name, when he kills Karen at the end of that movie, it's still dark out even at the end of the movie, so it's still not the next morning yet. Or the sun hasn't rise. Hopefully, it's after midnight by that point because otherwise it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, hopefully it's after midnight by that point, and it is actually on November 1st when he kills her. Um, but for whatever reason, they never show the sunrise. At least in the original Halloween 2, they get the sunrise at the end of the movie, so you can see that time has actually passed. Um, yeah, but I enjoyed this entry. Um, definitely, by this point, Michael has, the Halloween franchise has been um, influenced by the first two Friday the 13th movies that had come out before it. I believe Friday the 13th Part 2 came out in the summer of 81, and Halloween 2 didn't come out till the fall of 81, so before the Halloween season. So, um, or leading up to the Halloween holiday. So definitely influenced by that. They even did some reshoots last minute, I believe, mostly because of Friday the 13th Part 2. So just like the Friday the 13th series was influenced by the night or by the Halloween series. The Halloween series was in return influenced by Friday the 13th. I like the up of the gore and the nudity and the kills and the everything like that. So I enjoy part two. Um, all right, my number four is going to be Halloween 2018. And this is a movie that has dropped for me and might drop again if I ever rank this franchise again. But the 2018 version of Halloween, you can see I've got the triple box set here with Kills, Ends, and 2018. Um, uh, is this movie 2018? Um, I I just love how vicious Michael Myers is in the movie. That's one of the reasons why I got it ranked so high. Because this is one of the most vicious version of Michael Myers I've ever seen. Um, and I love it. Now there is that one scene in the movie where he chooses not to kill the baby, and that's kind of a weird scene in the movie. Why even have that scene in the movie? Why does he choose not to kill the baby when he has no problem killing younger kids? We see him kill like a younger child earlier in the movie when he kills the one boy who's riding in the truck with his dad. Um, but for whatever reason, he chooses not to kill the baby crying in the crib, and he sees it. he looks over at it and then he looks back and keeps walking. It's a weird scene to have in the movie. It didn't even need to be in there, but not sure exactly why it was in the movie, but it is interesting nonetheless. Um, uh, yeah, but this is a very vicious Michael Myers, and I like that. Um, this, some of the stuff with Laurie Strode, I don't really like. I think she's uh, very inconsistent with how she deals with her daughter versus how she deals with her granddaughter. Um, she very much wants her daughter to be a doomsday prepper, but then like her granddaughter, she just says, "Here, take a few $1,000 and go to Europe or something." It's just an inconsistency. I realize that she's dealing with the PTSD, which is something I forgot to talk about really with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. In that movie, every character in that movie is dealing with PTSD from the first attack, which makes sense. But particularly in the director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, those characters are completely and totally insufferable. Um, and they're much better in the theatrical version. That makes you not hate watching the movie that as much because at least you have characters that you can sort of relate to. In the director's cut version, they're so insufferable it makes you want to turn off the movie because you can't root for any of them. I forgot to mention that with Rob Zombie's Halloween too, but the reason I bring it up here is because with Laurie dealing with her PTSD after that attack 40 years ago in this version, um, uh, it's it's interesting. It's okay. I just think that H2O did it better. Notice I haven't gotten to H2O on my list yet. Um, but I think H2O did it better as she was dealing with PTSD, but somewhat functional 20 years after the original attack. And it's just inconsistent. With 2018 is inconsistent because she obviously must have had moments of sanity because she was married twice, they say. She was married twice and divorced twice, but she had a daughter and the whole thing. But I don't know, it just seems totally inconsistent. So I don't really like a lot of the Laurie Strode stuff. I think her saying that she prayed that Michael would break out of prison for the past 40 years is just stupid and ridiculous. Who wrote that line? Like, what? Why didn't she just pray for his death? Why would she pray for him to break out so that she could kill him? I mean, it just seems ridiculous and kind of like a line like that almost makes it feel like, you know, like it's her fault that Michael broke out and ended up killing her daughter, because she wanted Michael to break out all along anyway. So it's just weird. But there are a lot of things I do like about it. Like I said, I love how vicious Michael is. And I think what might help me with this one is I saw it in the theater on Halloween night in 2018. And it probably ramped up my experience with it, enjoying it that much, seeing it in the theater on Halloween night in 2018. That was fun. Okay. I believe what are we on? We are on my number three. So Halloween 2018 kicked off my Mount Rushmore. That could change in the future. But now we are on my number three. And my number three is going to have to be Halloween 4. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This one might be helped as the first time I ever watched this series. Um, I was glad to see Michael back, so it might be helped by that. His mask does look terrible in this movie. That's one of the biggest knocks against this movie. Um, I um, I enjoyed this. I think Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd, the daughter of Laurie Strode and um, Mr. Lloyd. I assume that's how she got the last name Lloyd, is because her dad's last name was Lloyd. Um, yeah, Daniel Harris does a great job in this movie. Of course, in this timeline, um, Jamie dies, or sorry, Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, dies in between movies. It dies in between part two and part four. Remember that part three takes place in a different universe, so um, and so she dies off screen in between parts two and part four in the original, continuing on of the original timeline. This one does undo the ending of part two and says that Michael and Loomis did actually live through the fire um, that was supposed to have killed them at the end of part two. But Loomis's face got disfigured, and um, and Michael just went into a coma. They took him, his body, and he went into a coma. So it's um, it continues on the original timeline, but with Michael and Loomis both living. But I just love Danielle Harris. I think she does an excellent job in this movie. She's so vulnerable, and seeing Michael go after this little girl who's a relatable character and that you like really ups the stakes for this movie. Um, I like the ending. I like the idea that maybe now Jamie has had the evil transferred into her. She's just a little bit older in this movie than Michael was when Michael killed his sister Judith in the beginning of the movie. So now his niece Jamie might carry on the evil. Of course, Halloween 5 ignores that. Halloween 5 ignores anything to do with that and just says, well, Jamie attacked her, but she didn't die, and they put her in this mental hospital for kids, and we're just gonna sort of basically pretend like the last movie didn't happen, or the ending of the last movie didn't happen. We're just we're not gonna have Jamie be evil in any way or have her struggle between her evil side and her good side. It's just gonna be good Jamie, and Michael is back trying to kill people in Halloween 5. So but I still love the ending of this movie. Um, supposedly they kill Michael. Of course, we find out that he actually lived, and we get to Halloween 5, he comes back. But I kind of like the ending. I kind of like their killing of Michael in this one. Um, I like how the townsfolk rise up and kill him. They do accidentally kill an innocent person by mistake first. Or wait, or is it no, I think at the very end it's not the townsfolk who end up killing Michael or semi killing Michael until the next movie. It's the um is it the big police squad that comes in from the next town over that kills Michael? Whatever it is. I really like not only Jamie Lloyd, but I like her foster sister as well in this movie. Of course, they kill her off in part five. But yeah, it's a good entry into the franchise, and I really enjoyed the story. I like the characters, and I want to see them succeed. So when those two final girls make it out at the end of the movie, I really like that. Okay, that Halloween 4 got my bronze medal, so I kicked off my top five with Halloween 2 from 1981. Then I started my Mount Rushmore with Halloween 2018. And then gave you my bronze medal, my third place bronze medal for Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now, let's get to my silver medal. My silver medal, second place. Boy, this was close. But I ended up giving my silver medal to Halloween H2O. Halloween H2O. Uh, I love the showdown between Michael and Laurie in this one. This one could have been the Halloween Ends, as far as I'm concerned. Um, because I hate Resurrection. I hate the way that they undo the ending of H2O. Um, I I want to say this. Um, the how do I say it? The storyline, or the storyline here. People could definitely ask the question, why did Michael, in this timeline, he just basically disappears for 20 years and then shows up out of nowhere? But if you watch the opening scene in this timeline, uh, Michael breaks into the house where Dr. Loomis was living up until the point where he died. And you can see at one point a map with several places marked on the map. And so I believe that Michael Myers has been trying to hunt down, or sorry, the Dr. Loomis has been trying to hunt down Michael for the last 20 years. And I think Michael has been getting away with it because he only kills once a year. And every year he picks a different town in America. He just travels from place to place, and on Halloween night he kills in a different town in America. So I think that could explain why Michael was missing for 20 years. In this version of this timeline, his after Halloween 2, the body mysteriously disappears and is not found again. Yeah, the burnt body after he was burned up and everything, he mysteriously disappears. But they connected in this movie with, you know, when when uh, Judy Myers, Judith, Michael's older sister, was 17. He killed her. Um, then he tried to kill Lori in 19. That was in 1963 that he killed Judith when she was 17. He tried to kill Lori in 1978 when she was 17. Now in 1998, he's trying to kill Lori's son John because John is now 17. So that's why he decides to show up on the 20th anniversary for Halloween, because he's compelled to kill people on the Halloween holiday, and uh, her son John is now 17, so he's compelled to try to kill John at the age of 17. Anyway, that I realize that's kind of convoluted, but I just like the feeling that the movie gives me. I like watching it from beginning to end, and feeling. And what I really like is the way that Lori stands up for herself in the end and chops Michael's freaking head off before the next movie after that does undoes it. But I love that she stands up for herself. She wants this to be the final showdown. She takes Michael, boom, chops his head off. To me, that could have been the ending to the Halloween series, and I would have been very happy with that ending. Also, might want to throw in that Halloween H2O was the first Halloween movie I ever saw. I was a late comer to this series. After H2O, I wanted to go back and see some of the other entries in the franchise and see what it was all about. But I do love, love, love the ending. I love Laurie standing up and fighting back. Chopping Michael's head off is one of the most badass scenes I've seen in all of cinema, period. Okay, my number one is the original Rob Zombie's Halloween, the first one of the two Rob Zombie films. Um, Honestly, like, I love this movie. Um, this was, I believe, the uh, one of the first that I ever saw. Um, After watching H2O, um, uh, I came across this one um, some years later, and then I think it was after watching Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 that I went back and got into the series and wanted to see the whole series. Okay, what I love about this one, and some people hate this and say that that Rob Zombie gave Michael Myers the most cookie cutter backstory, and maybe it is. Maybe it is a cookie cutter backstory. But I like exploring, and maybe the Halloween franchise was the wrong place to do it. Maybe you shouldn't take a character like Michael Myers and do it with that. But it's not like some of the other sequels to come out before Rob Zombie's Halloween remake didn't try to explain Michael's backstory. A bunch of them did come up with different reasons. Michael kills his family. Michael does it for this reason or that reason, right? Mostly killing his family. Or when he comes home and he happens to find people in his house, then he kills them, right? But, um, connecting him to the Cult of Thorn, stuff like that. But I enjoyed Rob Zombie's Halloween because he really gives a backstory to Michael Myers and tells the story of the kid having the bad life, and that basically turns him into a serial killer because of everything going on around him. And that's the story being told by the movie, and I enjoy it so much. Um, some people say it's so generic. I've even heard people claim that there's like a million other movies like this, and like, what movies have you been watching? I don't know of a single one. Now, I could be wrong. I'll admit the possibility that I could be wrong. Maybe there are other movies like this that show like a person um, kind of being corrupted as a young child and kind of having this bad, perfect storm of terrible circumstances that leads somebody then later in life to become a serial killer. I don't know of any though. Especially, particularly, I don't know that any that came out before Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So if Rob Zombie was just ripping off an idea that already existed, like he may have been um, using psychological concepts that were based on what happened to maybe real life serial killers, and maybe people are familiar with true crime and say everything that they didn't need this version of a story played out in cinema. And like I said, maybe the movie would be better received if it had just been a movie not connected to the Halloween franchise, and it was just this movie about this kid who then becomes a serial killer and like loses all his humanity and becomes a serial killer because of being provoked and having such a terrible childhood. But I loved it. Like, I absolutely loved it. I loved seeing, the child who later would become Michael Myers. And I thought if you're gonna give Michael Myers a reason and a backstory, I thought this was a great way to do it. I like the realistic feel to it, and I also like how Laurie Strode stands up for herself at the end of the movie, in the sense that she fights back and ends up uh, shooting Michael Myers at point blank range in the face. I think that that's good. I like that. Um, yeah, I like that she shoots Michael Myers at point blank range in the face. Again, I like endings where they really go after the bad guy. And it's the main character one on one with the main bad guy. That's why I love the ending of H2O so much, and why this isn't quite as good as the ending of H2O. It's still really good. So, um, yeah, I love Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. I know that people are going to say all sorts of things. They're going to say I'm not a real Halloween fan or whatever. They're going to ask me how I could rank the original at number 6. But that's just the way that I feel. All right. Please like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Dragonfire out.